See a little recording thing?
I can. You are recording.
Hi, everybody. This is Mike Green, and this is our first learning lunch. And our first topic for our inaugural kickoff is NCAA eligibility and some questions that I put out to our student athletes as well as our coaches, and they were generous enough to come back with some questions they'd like answered. So I'd like to introduce to you now Ms. Nicole, and I say it right, Poloski?
Pulaski, yes.
Oh, all right. Pretty good.
Perfect.
That was awesome. So, Ms. Poloski, can you just kind of introduce yourself a little further?
Sure. So I am a school counselor and the NCAA coordinator at a local high school. I've been doing that for about 4 years. But before that, I actually worked in higher ed as an academic advisor for student athletes. I worked at URI for about 7 years. Then I worked at Bryant for 4 years. I was an athlete myself at Providence College as a field hockey player. So I've seen it from both sides, both the high school and the college side. So that's a lot of my expertise and the information for today actually comes from when I was on the collegiate side of it.
Okay, thanks. And I really think that we have, our athletics is really the backbone of our community at West Warwick. And we'd certainly love to see our kids continue their love of sport at the next level. So I'm sure that the information that you can provide today will really help the kids out in kind of planning their future, because I know there's a lot of questions out there. Like the first question to kick us off is, can you review the process of applying for the NCAA clearinghouse? Is there a fee? Is there a fee waiver? I want to start us off with that.
Sure. So I would recommend to everybody that if they do feel like they're going to play or want to play a sport in college, that they go onto the ncaa.org website and register with the clearinghouse their sophomore year, at the latest your junior year. There's a couple reasons for that. One is that the fee goes up, it seems to be every year. So you only have to register once, and the earlier you do it, the less you'll pay. So when I started, it was like $75, and now it's $90. So the fee is $90. But it's a one-time fee, a one-time registration. You do need to register by the end of your junior year, because that is when your school counselor should be sending your first transcript to the NCAA to be identified as a possible early qualifier. So you want to have that all set up by the end of your junior year for sure. And you can do it as early as your freshman year, really, if you want to. Save yourself another $5 or $10 if it's going to go up each year. The way the fee works is that there is a fee waiver, and it's the same as the SAT. So if you qualify for an SAT waiver and any of those there's bullet points on qualification for the SAT, you would look at those same qualifications. And if you qualify, you would get a fee waiver. So you would put that in. You would, when you were going through the clearinghouse, you'd put in that you are applying for a fee waiver, and your school counselor or the NCAA coordinator at your school, whoever's doing it, would approve it for you. So it does have to be approved by the school, just like if you were applying for the SAT waiver. It's the same exact process, same exact criteria. So something that students are typically pretty familiar with. So that is an option for students.
Okay, thank you. Just to build on that, you mentioned early qualifier.
Yes.
What does an early qualifier mean?
Okay, so the NCAA, well, actually, let me back up for 1 second. Mostly when I'm talking about Division I and Division II requirements. So Division III is a little bit different. So for Division III, you actually don't have to register with the NCAA in a full registration. You can actually just do a profile, and that is free. So if you're going to just be concerned with Division III schools, you can go in and actually just do the profile. It's free. You don't have to worry about the full registration. So when I'm talking typically about Division I and II, and actually I have more information about how they differ later in the presentation. So just to qualify that, that was more Division I and Division II. Okay. So back to, sorry, I got sidetracked. What was the?
So you mentioned early qualifier.
Oh yeah, so early
Early
qualifier. Okay, so
admission.
that's why it triggered my Division I and Division II, because that would it would only matter for Division I and Division II. So the qualifications depend on your GPA in your 16 core courses for Division I and Division II. So what the 16 core courses are 4 English classes, 3 math classes, 3 science classes, 2 social science classes, and then a combination of other classes that are considered core courses. So it could be a 4th math, a 4th science, other history classes, and a lot of times it ends up being a student's second foreign language, so Spanish, French, that type of thing. So what the NCAA does is they look at those core courses and the GPA of those courses. And if you meet a certain GPA at the end of your junior year, you are deemed an early qualifier. I believe it's a 3.0. It's and what that does is the coaches on the other end, the college coaches, don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to be a qualifier academically at the end of your senior year. They already know, boom, this kid is a good student. They're already a qualifier. They're ready to go. So now, obviously, you're not going to have all 16 core courses done by the end of your junior year. So that early qualifier, it's actually just going to look at fewer courses that are reasonable for you to have done at the end of your junior year and a higher GPA than is required at the end of your senior year. It really is proving that you're at a level academically that isn't going to go down and isn't going to be questioned by the NCAA. Yeah.
Into the period.
So what an early qualifier is. It's for those kids who are great students, have stayed on course with their academics, and are going to be easy recruits for coaches.
Okay, sure. I'm thinking AP classes, AP level classes, honor level classes.
Yes, and it's not so much the level of the course as it is that it's deemed a core course. So it can be at any level as long as it's one of those English, math, science, history type classes.
All right, I understand, and I think our kids would get it too. Thanks for the next question. How early should students, and you kind of answered this already, should start the process of contacting coaches? And what's the best way to kick that off?
Yeah,
I'm a lot of football kind of things because I'm a football coach. So
yeah, it's a little bit different for each sport. What's interesting is that female recruiting starts earlier in a lot of cases than the male side. So what we find is a lot of recruiting happens in the freshman and sophomore year for like women's softball, women's soccer, those types of sports where it might happen a little bit later for the men. So each sport is a little bit different, but in general, we recommend that students are making contact their junior year. The other thing that students really need to understand is that there are limits to when the coaches can contact them. So coaches are allowed to send written correspondence earlier, but in terms of when a coach can talk to student athletes, that is typically your junior year. So for example, there's phone conversations can typically start after June 15th of the sophomore year or September 1st of the junior year. The September 1st is a football deadline. Most of the other sports are going to be that June 15th. So if you're a sophomore and you're reaching out to coaches and you're feeling like you're not getting responses, that's because they can't call you. And you'll hear that sometimes when you contact a coach, even in their email at the bottom, it'll say, if you are a recruit, I can't call you back, or I can't contact you, or you may get that on their voicemail. And that is true. They have to play by those rules. And it is, again, it's a little bit different for each sport. The recruiting calendars are different. So you want to make sure you're also aware of your sports criteria, because it could be a little bit different for each one.
So, and I'm thinking as an athlete, a freshman athlete sends an email to a coach, just need a girl, female athlete.
Mm-hmm.
they really, as a freshman, there's really not, there's just kind of, it falls on the athlete to reach out. The coach might not necessarily, or they can't actually.
They can't call. Yeah, they definitely can't call. They may be able to send them camp information. They might be able to send them some generic written correspondence back. Certainly they can, just respond with, appreciating them reaching out, that type of, but it would all have to be written correspondence at that point. They cannot call them.
All right. That's awesome, because that helps. Let me see. What's a good way? We mentioned emails. Is that the best way to actually put together something to reach out to coaches?
Yeah. So, it kind of hits on one of the other questions you had sent me about the recruiting agencies and paying for that type of help as well. And this is definitely something that I talk to a lot of families about. So I'm going to actually try to present my screen. I want to show you something that I pulled up that I thought was really helpful. All right, hang on one second. I just need to present this. Okay.
Did it go to share?
I now I have a black screen. Uh-oh. All right, that may not work. I'll read it.
All right.
Okay. Can you see that? Can you see the screen?
No, I can't, but we can see you, and you never
disappeared. All right, perfect. Well, I'll just read it. So my philosophy has always been that recruiting services, it's a money grab. They're mostly, it's preying on student athlete and parents' fears or concerns that somebody else is going to have, a better way to contact coaches, or they're going to get ahead and their student athlete's going to get left behind. And it's just not the case. So I just wanted to read something that I found that I thought really summed up how I felt. The Athletic College Advisors conducted an in-depth survey of NCAA college coaches from Division 1, 2, and 3. And they were asked, how do you not like to be communicated with by potential recruits? And nearly 80% of respondents said that they do not like messages from college recruiting websites. And when they were asked, how do you like to be communicated with by potential recruits, 98% listed personal emails as their preferred method of communication. And so what's really interesting about that is if you kind of put yourself in the coach's seat, right? They want to hear from a student athlete that they are actually interested in coming to their program. And they want to know that the student athlete knows about their program, understands what their program is, and believes that they're a good fit. They don't want to get mass emails from recruiting, agencies that are just sending things out to all different coaches. That's not giving them a personal connection. It's hard for the coach to believe that the student even knows much about the school and the program. So what I always tell my students when I meet with a prospective student athlete's family, their junior year, the first thing we start is with the best fit. So first you need to pick schools that are going to be a good academic fit. Do they have the majors you want? Is it the size of the school you want? Is it the location you want? If it's a school in California and you want to stay in New England, that's not a great fit, So you got to work kind of all of that out first. Is this a school you're going to want to be at for 4 years, with or without the athletics? Because unfortunately, in my case, I played field hockey at Providence and I broke my foot pretty early on, and that was it. And so I had to love Providence and be at Providence for 4 years without field hockey. And so you almost have to think to yourself, is this a school I can see myself at without the sport, if for some reason that all of a sudden isn't part of the equation? So you want to start with a list of schools that are good fits for you. And then you want to send a personal email. And the things you want to include in that email are your highlights. So if you've got, a YouTube clip of your highlights, it's a couple minutes, that's awesome. It doesn't have to be too long. They actually would prefer you keep it short. If they then reply back and say, do you have a full game tape, or do you have more tape then you want to send them, a full game or more in-depth highlights. But you can just start with, a couple minute clip. You also want to include all of your academic achievements. So what's your GPA? What's your SAT or PSAT score? What's your interest if you do have, an intended major that you would like? You want to obviously include all your other athletic stats that you have that you can include. And then you want to say why that school is a good fit. So I've looked into your program and I know you have this major and that's something I want to do. Or even athletically, why is it a good fit? I swam this time and I looked at your times and I know my time is would fit in well on your team, or I could, contribute to a relay, or, really letting them know specifically about why either athletically or academically, why you are a good fit. That's what coaches want to hear. They want to know you've done the research, the school, the program. And those are going to be the ones that get the hit and get the reply.
I think you just saved me about $1,500.
I'll send you a bill.
You know why, Nicole? Because I'm, as a dad of a female athlete, we are doing this, and we are looking, and some of the kids who are going to watch this video are friends, so the network is small. Mm-hmm. And so I really was talking to those parents as well and saying, hey, we're going to put this together. So what you're providing them is going to be really helpful, because I know there are parents who are considering this financial commitment, mm-hmm. and I know that it's not necessary personally, because you just have to do the legwork. For those students who are watching, the ILP platform that we are constantly telling kids to sign up for, which is a free service for our school district, provides all that information: the location, the tuition, even the cost of where their chosen profession, yearly salary, and as it compares to what their monthly bill will be once they get out of college. So mm-hmm. it gives them a little financial tutorial as well. So we try to push our kids towards that ILP plan, the Folder Wave platform. So that was good, because that's not in that. The athletics is never really in those things.
Right.
So I think this is a good combination of both.
Yeah.
You answered what grade can recruiters start to reach out to you. It depends on gender, mm-hmm. season specific. So we get that. We hear sometimes a lot about the sliding scale and the GPA. Yeah. And can you kind of, I'm not a math guy, so you're gonna have to speak slow for me, but our kids will pick up on it, I think, really quick. So
yeah,
a couple of
sure. So I can tell you that right now the sliding scale is on hold.
Very nice. Yeah.
So for this senior class and last year's senior class, there is no SAT requirement, and so there is no sliding scale. So they just need to meet the GPA requirement for their core courses, and that's going to be all it is. So we'll have to see. We are in a holding pattern. I've done a number of seminars with the NCAA through the COVID situation. They are not sure what next year's class will look like. So this junior year's class, as of right now, they are expected to take the SAT. So I am advising all of my student athletes to go ahead and sign up for the SAT this year if possible. But the seniors do not have to worry about it. So if you still have some last minute seniors who didn't get the opportunity to take the SAT, in terms of the NCAA, that's not going to make any difference for them this year. So that's just something to throw out there with the COVID situation.
Yeah.
So normally what the sliding scale is it goes back to that 16 core courses I talked about.
Yep.
So when they talk about the GPA side of the sliding scale, we're only talking about those 16 core courses. We are not talking about the overall GPA. So that's going to eliminate, unfortunately, the A in phys ed and the electives and those things. So typically your core GPA is going to be a little bit lower than your overall GPA. It needs to be a 2.3 to be eligible at the minimum. And what happens is you start with that minimum GPA of the 2.3, and that has a corresponding SAT score that you have to be eligible. As your GPA goes up, so if your GPA is a 2.5, the SAT score that you need goes down. You don't need as high of a GPA. Of an SAT score. again, as long as your GPA keeps climbing, if it climbs to 3.0, that SAT requirement goes down. In reverse, if your GPA is low, it can't go below a 2.3. That's the minimum. But at a 2.3, your SAT has to be higher than it does. So it basically just makes it so that students who test well are going to be rewarded with needing a lower GPA, and those that don't test well are going to be rewarded if their GPA is higher. Another thing to mention is that they do super score the SAT, so you can use your best math score and your best English score if you take the test more than once. And combine those. That's what we call super scoring. A lot of the colleges accept super scoring, and the NCAA does as well. So you can combine two scores to meet that requirement on that sliding scale.
Okay, that helps a lot, and I know what that. We've seen that kind of jam kids up. Really, if they're 2.0, it's not going to matter. Period.
No, and then the other thing is, what I saw last year, and I felt a little bad about it, is that I kept telling a student, you need the 2.3, you need the 2.3. But then his SAT score came in and it was so low that he ended up needing higher than that minimum 2.3 because his SAT wasn't where it needed to be to meet that 2.3. And so you got to be really careful, even in my seat as the advisor, if you tell a kid you only need a 2.3, that requires a pretty good SAT score. So, you do have to consider it. It's very easy to find if you want to look at the exact numbers. It's on the NCAA.org website. You can just even Google NCAA sliding scale. You'll see it. But yeah, it can trick people up.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. Now, is that, as far as Division 2, 3, is that sliding scale in effect?
No. So the only requirement to play Division 3 sports is acceptance into the college. So there are no high school requirements that are looked at. That's why you don't have to be completely registered with the NCAA and pay the fee for Division 3, because they are not taking the time to review high school transcripts for Division 3 student athletes. The assumption is at the Division 3 level, the schools are going to hold the kids to a standard that is high enough for them to be able to achieve at their institution, because they're not typically athletic driven at the Division 3 level. They are academically driven. So they're not going to accept students who don't belong at those institutions. So that's the understanding of why they don't look at it. So nope, again, everything I've said really only applies to Division 1 and Division 2 level.
All right. And so to segue into that, Division 1, 2, and 3, can you give us just I know it's vast, but can you give us just a little bit of how it would apply to the kids that would be looking to go to those colleges?
Absolutely. Yep. So Division 1 and Division 2 are very similar. Okay. They're both going to require that full registration and eligibility clearance with the NCAA clearinghouse. They both have athletic award money available. So you can earn a scholarship at Division 1 and Division 2 schools. Typically, Division 1 is going to offer more athletic money and more aid to more sports. A lot of times at the Division 2 level, it will concentrate more on the football and the basketball, and you may not see as much money in the other sports. Division 3 does not have any athletic awards given, period. So there is no such thing as an athletic award for a Division 3 student athlete. However, with that said, there are a lot of great academic institutions at the Division 3 level. For example, like a Williams College is an unbelievable school and a very good athletic program in many areas. And so a student athlete may not be able to, on their own, with just their academic criteria, get into a Division 3 school, and the athletic department, the athletic coaches can help. They can maybe get you a foot in the door to admissions in a way that a non-student athlete may not be able to get in. So certainly there are opportunities to have athletics help you still at the Division III level, but it's just not going to lead to an athletic scholarship. There's no such thing. The other thing also just to know is that the Ivy Leagues, even though they are Division I, do not have athletic aid either. So Ivy Leagues, there's no such thing as an athletic award, even though they're Division I. And then Division III, again, as we've talked about, there's no requirement for the full registration with the NCAA Clearinghouse. It's just a profile that you need to set up with them. And no certain GPA, no certain SAT score. The requirement is that you need to get into the institution that you're applying to. If you get in, then you would be deemed eligible to play. Division III also doesn't follow the same recruiting rules. So when we talk about dead periods, when we talk about the ability to talk to coaches in person, official visits, those don't exist at the Division III level. They're not held to the same requirements. So, that no one's keeping track of that. No one's watching. So you can do kind of whatever at a Division III level. They're not going to be paying for official visits and fancy dinners and things like that. So that's why it's not necessarily kept track of in the same way for Division I and Division II.
Right.
That's also another difference.
Right. And so, I mean, a lot of kids, I think that have pie in the sky and have big time aspirations, but reality is, you can get a great education and be able to participate in athletics in Division III.
Absolutely.
And if you're a good enough athlete, and I coached a little bit at Salve in Division III, so we knew that if they're an athlete who financially was tough, we worked with admissions to get them in, and we worked in other ways to get them need-based financial assistance.
Right. Or academic based.
Yeah.
And you'll see that as well at the Division I and Division II level as well. A lot of coaches are trying to create a package for you that can combine both athletic and academic money to give you the best package possible. I mean, that happens all over at every level, all different sports. And so what I tell my kids when they come in as freshmen and sophomores and they say to me, all right, what do I need to do to get recruited? Where should I start? I always tell the kids to make yourself an easy recruit. And the best way to make yourself an easy recruit is to do well academically. Make it so that the coach does not have to get on his hands and knees and beg in admissions to get you into a school because, coaches can only do that so many times. They only have what we call chips to play. They only have so many chips. And if they can get you in and get you some academic money and create a great package for you, and admissions is excited to have you as a student athlete, you're going to get a lot better package. You're going to get a lot more offers. You're going to be recruited over the student who maybe doesn't have the same academics. They may be equal to you athletically, but if you're an easier recruit academically, you're going to get that spot over that other student, and you're going to get more money because you're going to get some academic money or more need-based money, that type of thing. And so that's, my best advice is be an easy recruit. Make yourself as easy to recruit as possible. And that'll get you in a lot of doors that you maybe didn't even realize you'd be getting into.
You're right. And, I think as a dad, I tell my kids that all the time because at some point athletics will end. Mm-hmm. You need that education is the most important thing. This is a little bit off topic. It's not off topic, but it's not what we discussed. So I learned this myself last year. Students who have an IEP, NCAA, it does the course requirements. Are you familiar with that yet? A little bit. I mean, you might not see that where you are, but I learned that this year trying to get someone to qualify for athletics, and they had an IEP because, it might be someone that has something like a.
Individual. So the NCAA recognizes students with different learning needs. Absolutely. So with every strict rule that the NCAA has, there are always exceptions, and there are always waivers. That's what they call the exceptions waivers at the NCAA level. So I can certainly speak to at the college level. I had a lot of students that I worked with as their advisor who came in with IEPs, had a 504. The NCAA does recognize. So one of the big NCAA rules is that you have to be a full-time student athlete. You have to carry a full-time course load. But you can apply for a waiver if you do have an IEP or some special learning situation, and carry less courses at the college level. So if your typical course load is 12 credits, I've been able to work with students and get them to be eligible with 9 credits. So it's going to be the same thing on the high school side of it as well. If you are ineligible, and you don't get through the clearinghouse, and you do have the opportunity to possibly file a waiver, and explain your circumstances, explain the situation, and they can certainly work with you. Typically, the best people to work with that is the compliance officer at the college level. So once you have the school that you're pretty sure you want to go to, they will work with you to help you get a waiver if needed. And what you need for that. They're great at that. That's what compliance officers do. They file for waivers. So certainly they do understand that. And that, if you are a student at the high school level who's used to getting or taking less courses or having extended time or any of those certain accommodations, that will all be okay and acceptable and approved at the college level as well.
Awesome. Thanks. Is there such a thing as a full 4-year scholarship, or is each scholarship yearly? Like
technically they are yearly.
Yep.
They are. You're signing a commitment for a year, and as they are as well. The reason that you don't see scholarships pulled after a year, or even if someone gets injured, is because it looks really bad on the coach. So if a college coach gets a reputation of offering student athletes scholarships, but they only end up giving them for 1 or 2 years, that's going to get out there. It's a small community. And so it's just not good practice for the coaches to take away scholarships. So I've never seen it outside of someone just blatantly breaking rules, not doing what they're supposed to. I've never seen anyone lose a scholarship because they were injured or they didn't play as much as the coach thought they would. I mean, every once in a while, there's a bad apple in every bunch, but that's typically the offer that a coach makes is the offer they make. I do certainly see more often the other way, which is that they end up getting offered more money. So they may get $10,000 the first year, and a coach may say, if you earn yourself a starting role, we'll look to increase it to 15, or we'll look to increase it to a full. And that I certainly have seen kids earn their way into more money.
Right. It can be negotiable sometimes, right? If it depends on how bad they want you, to what level.
Yes. And you know what? It's hard because sometimes, in the process, it's like coaches can be used car salesmen sometimes. Some of them will sell you something that isn't as good as, it sounds. You do need to be careful. They will say what they want you to hear. And a lot of students, certainly, it's nice to hear great things about you. It's nice to be told over and over again how great you are. But when it comes down to it, are they giving you the money? Are you truly one of their top recruits? You want to make sure that they see that all the way through and aren't just empty promises, because, they want to grab as many, you also I find kids getting a lot of pressure to make verbal commitments to coaches early. I don't mind a verbal commitment, but I do constantly remind my student athletes that a verbal commitment is nothing more than, we've been watching a lot of Survivor in my house. It's like a handshake on Survivor. It doesn't mean much necessarily. You still have to get the grades. You still have to get into the school. You still have to perform. If you get hurt in high school and you have a verbal commitment, that will be taken away. That will quickly, dissolve. So I have sophomores that have verbal commitments already. And I tell them, you still need to get the grades and you still need to perform, because this will go away. So until you've signed on the dotted line of your NLI, there is no true commitment. And why I say that is because my point being, you don't want to burn any bridges. So if you're still going to camps, you're still meeting other coaches, you still want to shake their hand, look them in the eye, thank them, be polite. You can always, be honest. I've made a verbal commitment to this coach. That's my plan. You want to be honest, but you don't want to burn any bridges. You never want to talk bad about another school or another coach because you don't know, that coach could leave the school, things could change. You might need to reevaluate. And so you want to make sure you never, ever burn any bridges. You want to leave all the doors open you can until you've signed that NLI.
Right. And NLI is, for those who don't know.
Yes. NLI is your national letter of intent. And that's where you're actually signing on the dotted line that you will attend the institution and the money amount that they are committing to you athletically.
And there's certain dates that this happens. Like each sport has its own, and national
different signing days. Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And it's our goal here at West Warwick is to really start moving the needle and recognizing those athletes, because we do have athletes who are going off to continue their athletic career in college. So
it's an exciting time, and it's great when you're finally signing on that line, especially for those that have been kind of pushing through that recruiting process for so long. It's a nice moment for them.
That's awesome. Nicole, I want to thank you. I think we kind of hit all the places, that we could. And I can't thank you enough, because this is really, I think this should help everybody, anyone who's involved in athletics, no matter what grade you're in, coaches as well, because I think some even high school coaches may not have really a full understanding of this. And sometimes as high school coaches, we get, delusional, because a college coach will approach us about an athlete, and then we tend to be so hyper focused on that coach that there might be a better opportunity somewhere else for that student. Maybe not for our egos. It certainly sounds great when someone goes to Division I school and gets all the press and notoriety, but ultimately you want the best for the student athlete and the family, and and that's the most important thing. So I thank you so much, and for your time. We've been on here for about 45 minutes, which is huge. And I appreciate everything.
You're welcome. And if anybody has any follow-up questions, sometimes opening the dialogue creates more questions. So certainly I'm always happy to, if you get follow-up questions, let me know. I'm happy to, even answer them via email. You could send them out or do this again if we need to.
Okay. That sounds great.
Right.
I'm going to stop recording now.
All right.